Is a year removed from having over 2,000 scrimmage yards, leading the league in both rushing yards and touchdowns. He's only 24 years old. He'll be a free agent at the end of the season. This could be a difference-making player, changing teams 2 weeks before the season begins. Graziano's been working the phones like crazy. What are we hearing?
Well, it's interesting because remember when Austin Eckler couldn't get the contract from the Chargers and he asked for a trade and they gave him permission to seek one, he couldn't find it. Teams don't generally want to, in a market where nobody's paying running backs, teams don't want to give you something in a trade and also have to sign the guy. Now, what Jonathan Taylor has over Austin Eckler is 4 years. You say he's 24, Eckler's 28. That's a big difference in the life of an NFL running back. Maybe the whole thing, actually. So if you're a team thinking about extending a running back, you're a lot more likely to do it for a guy who's Taylor's age than you are for someone who's older. So to that end, there are a couple little, nibbles out there, right? Some teams that could eventually be interested. It's early on in the process, but right now, as our Stephen Holder was reporting, the Colts are looking for a first-round pick. I think if that holds true, that probably doesn't get done. But if they come off those demands a little bit, I think you could see something happen here.
Sal, give me the place that they should be on the phone right now with Indianapolis to get that deal done and not hang up till it is.
Buffalo Bills. If the Buffalo Bills get Jonathan Taylor, they go to the Super Bowl. It's that simple, in my opinion. And it's an arms race in the AFC East. And Buffalo needs a complement to Josh Allen, a really reliable complement. They need volume and production out of their running back position, and that changes the dynamic of how Josh Allen can play and what he can do. You already have an outlier at the wide receiver position. You brought in a new tight end. This is all about making sure that Josh Allen doesn't have too much to do to get him over the finish line. Buffalo, it's real simple. They get Jonathan Taylor. They tried to do it with Naheem Hines last year, right?
Yeah.
When they brought him over from the Colts. Didn't work out. So they have a mindset like we've got to help Josh Allen out. Let's do it with the best running back on the market in the last 2 years.
I will tell you this. He said that to me in our meeting this morning. My blood went cold. Because I think he's right.
Yeah.
The thought of Jonathan Taylor on the Bills, as a fan of the Jets, scares me to death, Swagu. What team do you think should go all in?
Yeah, I hear all that. I see your Bills and I raise you Dallas. And
of course. What are we going to expect? What do we expect?
Well, we've seen the team at its best when they've had a number of backs in the backfield.
But you know it's not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen.
It doesn't matter if it's going to. And I don't know that.
Let him go.
I don't know that.
Why would this make so much sense?
Tony Pollard coming off of an injury, and we talked about how well Tony Pollard played. We see Deuce Vaughn, which is a great story. Father's in the building. Everybody understands that. Jonathan Taylor is the piece that Dallas needs for Philly. That's who they need in order to close that gap a little bit more. And we start talking about not only bringing more talent, the philosophy. What the hell the head coach been saying all off season long?
Wants to run it.
We want to get back to playing an efficient way of football. You know how you efficient playing football? You be able to turn around and hand it off. You know how Dak throws less interceptions? You be able to turn around and hand it off to a prolific back. We're not talking about just the guy coming into your building. We're talking about the elite rusher in this league.
Look, two thoughts jump immediately to my mind with this. One of them is Tony Pollard is a terrific accent piece. He's not meant to be a guy that you hand it off to 20 times a game. Second, when Dak was at his best, when this team was at its best in recent years, it's when Zeke was at his
100%.
best. This is that, right?
That's
Jonathan Taylor is that.
An upgrade with Jonathan Taylor. And not only that, when you think about what Dallas has gone through as far as we've always come back to why couldn't they score points? We talk about how good the defense has been. What has happened? Last year, we saw Tony Pollard get hurt, and we saw them become obsolete from an offensive standpoint. I feel like this. Jerry said what he said about how this team and how he perceives this team. And when you bring Jonathan Taylor in, it not only makes you better as a football team, it reinforces that we are all in for going for this Super Bowl. And look, in totality, does it make a huge difference for Dak Prescott? Yes. And that's the only thing that really matters when it comes to the Cowboys right now.
I think if you're the Cowboys and you say you have Jonathan Taylor on your team this year, they'd say, great, that sounds fantastic. What the Cowboys probably aren't going to want to do is trade a first-round pick or high draft picks and also sign the guy when they have all these other extensions coming
100%.
up, right? Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, all these guys. So CeeDee Lamb's still not.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think those are both great picks. Great. I mean, but again, Buffalo hasn't prioritized the position, doesn't fit financially with what Dallas wants to do. The one I'm going for is Baltimore. We saw them at the beginning, right? We know what Lamar Jackson can do. We've heard all about the new weapons on offense, how they want to throw it. But they have so many question marks at all these offensive positions, right? Odell Beckham coming off a year he didn't play, right? Rashad Bateman always hurt. Zay Flowers, great, but a rookie. And then the running back room, same kind of thing. J.K. Dobbins hasn't been healthy.
Yep.
Melvin Gordon is there. We don't know what he still has. This is a difference-making player, highly productive. 24 years old. Outstanding young man, by the way, like high character individual. Like, I just think he's a guy that on any team would make a difference. That's a team that needs to do something to kind of set itself apart in an AFC field where they're trying to get into that top 2 or 3 with Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati. I think that'd be a great fit.
I said Dallas for 2 reasons. One, I don't want him in Buffalo. The other is that I do think it makes sense. And listen, Sal, you just said they'll never do it. Well, here's the bottom line. All right, a first-round pick, whatever. Someone's going to have to give the Colts what they want. This is going to become a race, and teams are going to want him. Jerry wants to win it right now. The Cowboys are in all-in mode. This is how they win when they play well. Oh, by the way, we just were told that they got to pay all this money. They have no money. And then 2 weeks later, they had money for Zach Martin, right? Suddenly, you've got money when you need money. And I was looking at the salary cap this morning. We got sent out, like, the teams that have the most money remaining. The Cowboys have a ton of money remaining under the salary cap.
It's running back money.
Look at it here. It's $19 million they have. These other teams have way
You don't ever
less.
have to put it up there for me.
Okay,
You know how I feel about the Cowboys.
I'm with you. But so tell me, Sal, why are you saying they won't do it?
I'm saying they won't do it because they have Tony Pollard. And I believe
Tony Pollard is not a workhorse back.
Yeah,
he is like a Ferrari in a demolition derby, is what Ryan Clark said.
They say they're going to run the ball, but that's not what they're doing in training camp. That smidge that you talk about, the difference between Philly and Dallas, it closes real quick. If you score points, how do you beat Philadelphia?
But see, here's the problem.
How do you beat Philadelphia?
Sal,
You score
Dallas
early.
has not had a problem scoring points.
You score
and they
early.
still lost.
You score early.
You
That's
can't.
the key.
You have
Get
to
up on
change.
Philly.
You have to change your offensive philosophy. I've been arguing with people about this all offseason. It does not mean Dallas won't be explosive offensively because of a change in philosophy. What it means is when we up on Jacksonville, we can hand the ball off, and Dak won't throw interceptions to let Jacksonville win the game. When we're playing San Francisco and that physical defense, we need to have an answer for the physicality at the line of scrimmage. When we're playing Philly, as much as Jalen Hurts ascended, what was Philly's strength as a football team?
The offensive line and the run game.
Offensive line and the run game. As much as we talked about A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts' ascension throwing the ball, Jalen Hurts' legs, Miles Sanders' legs, and that offensive line was what devastated people. If Dallas wants to do what they've been saying they're doing, I don't think you go into the season with Deuce Vaughn and Tony Pollard.
I want to make a quick point on the salary cap figure. In the NFL, you can roll salary cap space over into the next year. They know they got Micah Parsons coming. They know they got Dak Prescott coming. Dallas is thinking 2-3 years ahead on the salary cap. I'd be very surprised.
I understand, but if you're the Cowboys and your owner, we're going to hear the sound in a minute.
What you say makes sense. I just don't think it fits with what they do.
But if you're the owner and you're saying, I want to win right now, then you don't worry about where you're rolling your salary cap money to. You try and win.
What does the D stand for? Distress.
The D stands for distress, desperation, and that.
Do you think Indy would come off the first round pick?
Oh, yeah, I think eventually.
Right.
I think it makes sense to talk tough now.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
They didn't even use a first-round pick to draft him.
That's right.
Like, I don't know how they can expect a first-round pick in this market for running.
Look, he's following in the footsteps of not just one, but 2 legends. I mean, he's following 30 years of first-ballot Hall of Fame quarterback play. It's unfair to say anyone is going to be that good, but he's going to be a really good player immediately.
I believe he will be. And here's the reason why. Right? And as much as I'm big on now young quarterbacks playing because the college system translates to the NFL and it's a lot of familiarity, this was for as much hell as the guy you love raised. This was the right way to usher a quarterback into a franchise where you know the responsibility is more of a magnifying glass than anywhere else in the NFL. You talked about the 2 guys, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. whatever guy coming after them, he don't need to start the first day he show up to the building because the comparison is totally out of the stratosphere and that type of pressure. Jordan Love has sat. He's watched the business of the NFL transpire. He's watched the ugly side of the business transpire. He's watched a pro and a Hall of Famer, one of the best we've seen do it in this game, go about his business and win 2 back-to-back MVPs. There is nothing knowledge-wise that Jordan Love in this league hasn't seen. Now, has he experienced it? No. And you got to go through those growing pains when you play for the first time. But I said this early in the offseason. Don't be surprised if Green Bay in the NFC North is hovering around having a chance to win it. I would not be shocked at all. And remember this, for as much hell as Brian Gutekunst got, this is a really good roster. When you look at the players on this team, it's a really good roster. They got a top corner in the league in Jair. If it hadn't been for a mishap from a linebacker, they might have beat Detroit last year. You talk about the defensive line able to generate pressure. Offensive line is really good. Jordan Love has to be a manager and at times go above what people think he can do, and this team may be hovering around playoffs.
All right, it'll be interesting to watch. Some people think they could be a contender in a division that most people don't love. Cindy, put the picks up there. I asked everybody who they thought was going to win the NFC North. Look at the picture under Sal Paolantonio's name. He's going with the Chicago Bears. Why?
I am going with the Chicago Bears because I like what their new general manager's done in terms of their front seven. Their front seven is going to be a far more active front seven on defense. I like the way Justin Fields has really developed as a dual threat quarterback who can win from the pocket. But when he is running, he's a really scary quarterback running outside the numbers. He is fearless. He is tough. And I think he is in the MVP conversation. I agree with you about Justin Fields. I like the Chicago Bears. You know, listen, Jordan Love, you follow 2 first-ballot Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult to do that. You know that. It's tough to do. He's got to go on the road to Chicago and win. He's got to go on the road and win in Detroit. He's got to go on the road and win in Minnesota. Those are tough places to play. So for Jordan Love, it's going to be a difficult transition, but I think the Bears have a good foundation in place.
Plus, in Chicago,
They've never had a good quarterback.
I was about to say, the last great, I mean, he's following in the footsteps of Sid Luckman. You know, and we're going back.
You
right?
were there, you remember.
Sid Luckman. That's back
They've
when
never had a 4,000-yard passer.
That's correct.
Never.
I mean, I'm not even kidding when I say
They've
Sid Luckman
never
is the last great
had-
quarterback they had.
So
I mean, what the Bears?
I love what the Bears have done this offseason.
A little early.
I think they need another one. I think they were a couple off seasons away, but I do think they're on the right track. And yeah, if they win the division, absolutely Justin Fields is in the MVP conversation because that'll be one of the big stories of the year. Anything can happen in this league. Teams are ahead of schedule all the time. Absolutely possible, but I do think they're still a year away. I went with Minnesota. I mean, they won it last year. Yep. I think it's fair to expect a step back from Minnesota because they won 11 one-score games, and that's ridiculous.
Heard him say that before, but here are the quotes from Jerry to Peter King. Quote, I know how hard it is to win one of those. You shouldn't give up the ghost because you fall short in a highly competitive league. Just because we haven't won it in so long doesn't make what we've done meaningless. And I think this year we're in a better position to win it than we have been in years. We have the team and we have the quarterback. Interesting from the owner. My favorite, my beloved former Cowboy is Marcus Pierce. Is he right? Is this the best position they've been in recent memory?
Yeah, and the reason why is because, one, when you look at the NFC conference-wise, they are a top 3 team in that conference. When you talk about talented roster, quarterback with experience, built the right way. Defensively, we know that they're a top 5 unit, elite at taking the football away. The issue for Dallas is always and will always be, and G, I told you this when we were on, Dallas is getting in the playoffs. And they're going to have really good games where we're going to come back in here on Monday and we're going to be like, they Super Bowl contenders. Or they going to play Monday night and they Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah.
Come find me when Dak Prescott is in a game in the playoffs and everything is not set up perfectly for Dallas to win the game and he overcomes it. That's when I want to start talking about the Dallas Cowboys being Super Bowl contenders. Because based on what we've watched, that is what your quarterback has to do in order to have a chance and get further along in winning the Super Bowl. Don't tell me about an offensive line, because if they don't play well, it's obvious that you're not going to win. Don't tell me about a defense. If they're giving up points, it's obvious that you're not going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. What is Ford going to do against San Francisco when it's not going well and we need to make 3 plays to get out of here and play a week from now? And so that is why I get frustrated when we have this conversation about Dallas every year. It's never been about if Dallas is good enough. It's never been about if they're a good enough team to get into the playoffs and give people problems. Will Dak Prescott, who I'm going to be critical of this year, by the way, just a forewarning to everybody.
Let's write that.
Will he deliver?
Write that one down.
When it needs to be him.
Yeah.
How do we attribute great quarterbacking in this league now? Moments. Like, people realize Jared Goff had a phenomenal year last year as a quarterback. We didn't talk about him because he didn't get a chance to be in those moments. When did Josh Allen ascend and the Bills ascend to being the team? When he went toe-to-toe with Mahomes.
Yeah.
The Bills were winning before they played that game.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about him like that until Josh Allen played like that. Joe Burrow. Is Joe Burrow the second best quarterback in the league? Why? He beat Patrick Mahomes and went to a Super Bowl. Dak Prescott hasn't had that moment. And that's the issue for the Cowboys. It ain't about if they good enough. Yeah, it's a great window. It's been a good window. It's about him this year.
Yeah, and they would tell you that they believe in him, that they believe he will be that guy. You're right that he hasn't been, but I mean they're all in with him, and that's why they continue to build the way they build, right? Not necessarily making the aggressive stretch move, but draft, develop, sign their own guys, which again has kept them good. They've been almost always a good team during this window. But yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's the question he has to answer. I think when you talk to people with the Cowboys, they believe he ultimately will and can be that guy. But yeah,
I want to make sure I'm understanding what we're saying. Are you saying to me the Cowboys have basically been good enough for the last few years, and it is the quarterback who has not gotten them over the hump? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I feel like we've attributed it to a lot of other things.
Gee, listen.
Yeah.
I love Dak Prescott.
Yeah,
Been covering since Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yes. The NFC Championship games against San Francisco.
Yeah.
yeah.
Does people realize how good Dallas defense played against that offense?
Yeah.
And Kyle Shanahan? Do people understand the position that this offense has been put in to have chances at winning football games? Like, it is not far-fetched to go beyond what we see. This is why I got so mad about the Kellen Moore and they scoring points.
Yeah.
Bro, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can have 30 and shoot 19 free throws because people trying to make a comeback.
Right.
That's similar to what Dallas has been doing from an offensive standpoint. Dak Prescott, in high leverage moments, has not delivered in the playoffs. I ain't making news.
Right.
Go watch the tape. We can go watch it.
And then you flip it around to the other guys, right? We saw Patrick Mahomes literally sprain an ankle and stay in the game and win it in a playoff game.
Yes.
We've seen Joe Burrow get sacked 9 times in a playoff game and find a way to win it. Joe Burrow, who's won as many playoff games in 2 years as his entire franchise won
100%.
before he got there. These are difference makers, and Dak hasn't ascended to that yet.
This is the reason why Kellen Moore is out and Mike McCarthy is the play caller. It's because in those critical moments, do you have the communication between the head coach and the quarterback on the football field so that you can figure out how to get out of trouble and stay out of trouble? Can the quarterback stay out of trouble, and then when your team is in it, can he get you out of it in the critical moments? And that's the bottom line for Dak Prescott, and it's been like that for a while.
Yes.
No question about it.
So let's talk about the division for a brief moment here, because the best way to get to the Super Bowl is to win the division. How close, in your opinion, Sal, what's the best team in the NFC East, and how close is it?
Well, I agree with Marcus that it's a smidge. They're close, but the big gap is exactly what Marcus is talking about, and that is the turnovers by the quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
The number one outlier, the number one thing that determines NFL games is your quarterback turning the football over. Last year, the NFL game was decided by the fewest points in NFL history since 1932. So the margin for error has never been smaller in the National Football League. If you're turning the ball over in the red zone in the fourth quarter, you're going to lose football games in January. That's the bottom line. And Jalen Hurts does not turn the ball over in those situations, and Dak Prescott does.
It literally probably was the difference in the Philly winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
One turnover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the fumble. Listen, G, I'm telling you, bro. I'm really frustrated about this. I'm so tired of talking about, is Dak Prescott a good quarterback or a franchise? Yes, he is.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.